Hi, and welcome to my channel where I share everything you need to know to design your life. Today I want to discuss how to choose the proper ventilation system for your range top or your bathrooms and kitchens. It is important to have one that works properly for the space to eliminate smells, steam, and other toxins from the air, giving you a better air quality within your space. There are typically 4 key components to consider when selecting a ventilation system: the duct path or layout versus the number of allowable turns, the hood width and depth versus the range size, the system's power and makeup system, the zones or the operational noise levels. The CFM chart: if your range is against the wall, you should have 100 CFMs per linear foot of your range. So if your range is 2.5 feet wide, you would need a CFM of 250. And then if you have it in an island, it's 150 CFM per linear foot is what is recommended. So there are 4 key components in selecting the proper ventilation system for your installation. The first is your duct path. It's not this kind of duct, it's this kind of duct. Improper ducting can reduce the efficiency of your ventilation system. And these are best done by professionals because they will follow the guidelines to install the ductwork properly. And then the number of allowable turns will directly affect the size of the fan, because the more turns that there are, the stronger the fan will need to be. And then the layout should be prepared prior to specifying the system, because it is the layout that determines the size of the system and not the system that determines the layout. And I hope that makes sense. The second component is the hood width and depth versus the size of the range. So the size of your hood should be the same or greater width than the range it is servicing. And actually extending the size of the hood 3 to 6 inches beyond your range size will actually help to pull the smoke and steam and smells out of the space much more efficiently than one that is the same size or even smaller. So when you're cooking on a gas range, there are byproducts of combustion, one being carbon monoxide. And gas combustion produces water vapor, and this can be an issue. So you want your hood to have the efficiency to pull all of these vapors and everything out so that it properly removes them from your space. The third component to consider is the system's power. The system should be strong enough to remove the steam and smells that it was created to remove without creating the alternate problem of removing too much. When it removes too much CFM or cubic feet per minute, it can create other problems. If the CFM is greater than 400, it has to have a mechanical air makeup system in place. A makeup air system approximately replaces the amount of air that was removed. The fourth thing to consider is the operational noise level, or the zones. And zones are the measurement of the noise level produced by the ventilation system. And as I mentioned before, the lower the zone number, the higher the noise, the louder it gets. The higher the zone number, the quieter the system is. The noise level that a system makes may not seem that important unless it's in spaces where it's actually going to hinder your enjoyment of that space or being able to carry on a conversation in normal tones. If you've ever gone into a restroom or you're cooking and you turn the fan on, if you cannot have a conversation over the sound of the fan, then the zone rating for that particular unit is very, very small, because the smaller the zone, the louder the sound. And in our chart, this particular one can range from 30 decibels to 73 and from 0.5 zones up to 10. Sometimes there is confusion of how close a hood top can be to the surface of your range. And for a non-combustible range top, the vertical clearance above the range cooktop surface to the bottom of any approved vent hood or other approved non-combustible material should be no less than 24 inches. The vertical clearance above the range hood surface to the bottom of any combustible material, such as wood or metal cabinets, should be no less than 30. The exhaust duct should be exhausted to the exterior of the home. It is not to be exhausted into the attic, into a crawl space, or into a wall. This can produce mildew and also release the pollutants back into your environment. And it used to be common practice many decades ago where they would just vent it up into the attic. But we have gained so much knowledge that we know better than to do that, because by venting it outside, you're not bringing those pollutants back into your space. You're not producing mildew, because attics can be very warm, and then you introduce the steam it's pulling out of your bathrooms and out of your kitchens. It is just the perfect environment for mold and mildew. And then, of course, there is always the debate of a ventless hood versus a vented hood. And to be perfectly clear here, a ventless hood is not going to remove the pollutants from your space. It is simply going to recirculate the air. In order to have a better and more healthy air quality, you need to have a vented vent hood. There are microwaves you can get that have the vent included in them, and in many cases it is a ventless one, and they became very popular, but for the reasons I've mentioned previously, they are not the best choice as far as removing the pollutants, and they simply recirculate the air. But even if they are vented, microwaves over a range top is not a good idea, because it reduces the amount of space between your range top and the bottom of that unit. As we talked about before, it should be 24 or 30 depending on if it's combustible or non-combustible. And technically you would be supposed to install it higher so that you could maintain that 24 or 30 inch, but most people just install them as is as far as the space that is there, and that brings the bottom of that microwave too close to the surface of your range hood. And having a microwave above a stove can be very dangerous. It can potentially cause harm, because you can either be reaching over a stove that has things cooking on it, and that presents a certain amount of risk, or you could be reaching up into the microwave to remove a hot item from the microwave, and it is always suggested that it be more at a level with you, or even below where you're lifting up rather than you're pulling it down. The suggested maximum height would be 54 inches. So by having it above your range, it is not properly installed for the maximum benefit to the user. Other options to install an actual microwave would be to have a countertop microwave, have a microwave drawer, install it in a lower drawer or cabinet space so that it can be used there rather than above. And as always, make sure you follow manufacturer guidelines when doing the installation. One thing I have seen recently are what's called low profile microwaves. They're very short, so it allows you to maintain the space that you need between the bottom of that microwave and the range top. But again, they are not the most efficient when it comes to ventilation. So you kind of have to weigh that out. I know that there are some aspects or some situations where actual venting to the exterior can be a challenge or can be impossible. So I know that there are cases where that you need to use these microwaves with the ventless hood, but try to avoid it and use a vented hood whenever possible. And these range hoods can be very elaborate depending on what you clad them in, or they can be very basic. But the key factors are that you need them to remove the pollutants from the air and that they are vented properly and are strong enough to do so. There are many styles of vent hoods that you can get so you can stay true to the aesthetic of your interior design. That could be a vent hood that is clad in wood, it could be clad in copper, it could be built behind a stone facing. So there are several ways you can camouflage these, but you want to make sure you have the proper vent hood size for the range top that you're using. Thank you so much for spending time with me. I appreciate it. And if you found this helpful, leave me a comment below and let me know what type of vent hood you have or you are considering to purchase. It would mean so much to me if you would subscribe and become part of our community of powerful people and click that bell so that you're notified of the next upload. If you found this video helpful, here is another one that you may also find helpful and a playlist.